Avatar: The Last Airbender is about to release. The set looks like an absolute banger. People are super hyped, but there's one problem. No Commander Precons. I've been getting a ton of requests to make some Avatar-themed Commander decks in the spirit of Universes Beyond Precons. So these are going to be Avatar Commander decks using only cards from the Avatar set. So every single card is going to be depicting the Avatar setting. In fact, right before I was going to record this video, I got a message from my friend asking for this very thing. So shout out to Ben. Hopefully this video is helpful to you. Now, I wasn't sure what type of budget restrictions I should have on these Commander decks, if any. So I went over to the YouTube community tab and I asked you guys over there, and the majority opinion was to have some sort of budget restriction. And the one that I landed on was the most commonly upvoted request was to just basically run any Avatar cards from the main set and Jumpstart, but leave out any bonus sheet cards. Also, it was funny to see that the classic Tomer Poll meme lives on in the comment section here. Basically, people think that whenever I make a poll, the actual result doesn't matter, and I've already made up my mind, and this is just like a formality of some sort, which is funny. Sometimes that is actually very true. In this case, it was not. I'm not Watsy, you guys. Sometimes it actually does matter. All right, we kick things off with my personal favorite Avatar Commander deck of the bunch. It's Avatar Aang. This is a 4-color creature. However, it is a 5-color commander due to the color pips on its backside. So the front side is 4 mana, red, green, white, and blue. It's a 4/4 flying firebend 2. Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, draw a card. Then if you've done all 4 of these this turn, transform it. And on the backside is a 6/6 flyer. Spells you cast cost Wooburg less to cast, and they also reduce generic cost, which is very cool. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may transform Aang. If you do, you gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, put 4+1/+1 counters on him, and deals 4 damage to each opponent. So this is, the corporate mandated 5-color legendary for a UB set. Yeah. I know a lot of people are a little bit unhappy with this design, but I think this is actually a banger one because Avatar Aang only cares about stuff going on in the Avatar set. He only cares about the set's mechanics, which is firebending, waterbending, earthbending, and airbending. So I think the fact that he rewards you for playing Avatar cards and he is the default commander for an Avatar-themed deck is actually wonderful. And he's also incredibly powerful. Just baseline, he's a 4/4 flyer. And whenever he's attacking, he firebends 2, which means he makes 2 red mana that he can only use during combat, and then it goes away. And when he does that, he draws a card. So by himself, he's a 4/4 flyer. Every single time he attacks, he draws a card. And then whenever you're doing waterbending, earthbending, airbending, you're drawing a bunch of cards. So he's a huge draw engine. The backside, I've never personally got to flip yet. It could happen if, I guess, your opponents don't interact with you. But if they are, it's relatively difficult to cast all 4 in the same turn, or 3 rather, in Firebend, and then flip them over. But the backside is amazing. It's very powerful. It's very cool if it ever manages to happen. And I like the fact that it's relatively hard to do because it makes it more exciting when you actually manage to do it. Backside is just like a huge mana discount. You've been drawing all these cards with the front side, and then the backside is just like, oh, I get to dump out my hands. And then when you run out of cards, you can just flip them back to the other side, refill your hand, go wild, have fun. So basically the idea of this deck is that you want to be waterbending, earthbending, firebending, and airbending as much as possible. And that's the core of the deck, obviously. So we have a bunch of great ways to do all 4 mechanics. For example, earthbending, we can use Toph. And whenever we're casting a spell, we earthbend 1. And whenever we earthbend 1, we draw a card. Avatar's Wrath is another brilliant, amazing new board wipe. I love this card in general, just like generically very powerful card, but it also airbends. You only get to draw 1 card with Aang, by the way, not 1 for each creature, but still, you're doing a really powerful effect, a really crazy good board wipe, and you're drawing a card on top of it. Why not? And that's kind of like a theme with a lot of these cards, is like, these are cards that are pretty powerful on their own, and then with Avatar Aang on the battlefield, you're also drawing cards. Zuko does firebending, so he draws cards for Aang. He makes a lot of mana, and then he also pumps a team whenever you're doing blinky stuff, casting stuff from exile, and airbending, which is just like delayed blink, you could say. Katara is also a great finisher in the deck. The deck kind of goes wide a little bit, and Katara can turn these relatively small creatures into relatively large creatures. She also works really well with earthbending, because earthbending turns your lanes into 0/0 creatures and puts counters on them, +1/+1 counters on them, but their base power and toughness is 0. So if you waterbend 5, for example, you're essentially adding 5 power and toughness to all your earthbended lands, which is very, very cool. And then also, if you just waterbend for 1 a whole bunch of times, which is very trivially easy to do, every single time you're doing that, you're drawing a card off Avatar Aang. So these are really good cards. It's really easy to draw oodles of cards in this deck. And then also, since Avatar Aang has firebending too, there's going to be a lot of cards in the deck that also utilize his firebending really effectively. Obsessive Pursuit is basically a 2-mana Phyrexian Arena in the deck. You're not drawing a card outright, you're making a clue. But then with Avatar Aang, you firebend 2, so every single time you attack, you can just spend that 2 mana to crack a clue if you want to. And it also has additional utility. It's putting +1/+1 counters on things. It's gaining you life. And then also you have a bunch of like also instant speed interaction too, and instant speed spells that can utilize the firebending too, like Hog Monkey Rampage. It's a fight spell that, you just spend the firebending 2 mana on, and it's a very clean use of the card. And then there's also a bit of an ally sub-theme going on in the deck too. Most of the creatures are allies, and then a lot of the cards are just very, very easily good with Aang in particular. So for example, Katara the Fearless, just with Aang on the battlefield, each time you're triggering Aang with a whatever bending, you're drawing 2 cards instead of just 1. Haru Hidden Talent, whenever an ally is entering the battlefield, you get to Earthbend 1, which also means you're drawing another card with Avatar Aang. These cards are phenomenal in the deck. And then since Aang is such a powerful draw engine of the deck, we are very heavily loaded with cheap ways of protecting him. So Redirect Lightning, absolute bango of a card. I think this is like a red staple, honestly, but it works perfectly well here too. Airbender's Reversal is flexibility where you can like destroy a creature, but you can also airbend Aang or another creature you control to protect it. And that also draws you cards in the same process. So that's really fun. And then just in case like plan A is just falling apart, Aang is being shut out of the game, we can't protect him or anything, the deck runs a lot of just like straight up powerful cards that don't need that much building around or a specific board state. Like the entire Mythic Saga of Legends from the set is here, and they're all phenomenal. Like Legend of Yang Chen, Legend of Roku, all of these are really powerful sagas, really front loaded, so much value for the deck that you don't really need to build around. You can, but you don't need to. And then the backside, they turn into avatars that are super overpowered and just awesome. They're great. So the deck as a whole is, I think, really, really fun. I would say it's definitely a bracket 2 deck, possibly bracket 3 without any of the upgrades. Just the baseline has a lot of power in it. And I think I wouldn't feel bad about bringing this to like a bracket 3 table, but bracket 2 is probably where it's more at home with. Like the deck is so fun. It has so many like layers of synergies. It has all the bending going on. It has an ally sub theme. It utilizes fire bending. It has like a lot of really interesting cards going on. I genuinely love this card. And then for all of these decks, or for the vast majority of these decks, I'm also going to have 10 cards that you can upgrade the deck with to make it even more powerful, and these are using the bonus sheet. So for example, for the 5-color Aang deck, we're going to replace a forest with the Screenshot Fable Passage. I'm not a fan of the screenshot arts, but it's a really good land. Then we've got a mountain for a sun-baked canyon. Then we've got Elemental Teachings. We're just replacing it for a Sol Ring because obviously Sol Ring. Bender's Waterskin is just a good card in the deck. It's primarily extra useful for like cracking clues and stuff, but like Arcane Signet is just better. And then Enter the Avatar State is just additional protection for Aang. It's also very flavorful, so maybe you want to keep it in there for that reason. But if you want something more powerful, throw in the Screenshot Heroic Intervention, because it's Heroic Intervention. It's very good. And then Cutting Maneuver gets swapped out for Deflecting Swats. Very nice. And Fire Nation Attacks for Fierce Guardianship. Very easy. And then Abandoned Attachments, Flawless Maneuver. The free cycle of interaction is just very good. What can I say? Combustion Technique goes out for Deadly Rollick. And Fire Lord Azula, she was like one of the few non-allies in the deck. She's just very powerful in general, but we can replace her for a more thematic, more synergistic card instead with Mai and Zuko from, I believe, the Scene cards. It just also works really well with allies and also offers firebending and whatnot. So that's the first of the Avatar decks, Avatar Aang. It's my personal favorite. I played an earlier version of this deck, a less tuned version of this deck, on an upcoming Commander Clash episode. I'm not going to spoil anything because it hasn't come out yet, but I will say that I loved piloting this deck. It's super, super fun, super flavorful, uses the set's mechanics really, really well. And I just genuinely loved it. And I might be building a copy of this deck for my own paper collection, my own personal collection. But as you can tell, this is not the only deck I built for this video. The video is much longer. If you look at the timeline, I've got more decks for you all. So let's move on to the next one. So after building Aang, I decided it would make a lot of sense if I'm making an Avatar Precon video to have at least 4 Precons, 1 for each bending type, because, Commanders usually played 4-player free-for-all. So it'd be cool to have, 4 Avatar-themed Precons, 1 for each bending type that you can play against each other. So that's what I decided to do. We begin with the Earthbending deck with Toph, Hard-Headed Teacher. It's a 4-mana Gruul, 3/4 legendary creature human warrior ally. When it enters, you may discard a card. If you do, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast a spell, Earthbend 1, and if that spell is a lesson, put an additional +1/+1 counter on that land. So Toph is an Earthbending machine, one of the most efficient ways of Earthbending you could ever find. Whenever you're casting a spell, you get to Earthbend. It's that simple. And then on top of that, she offers a little bit more utility, more +1/+1 counters if we, cast a lesson or whatever. We're not super focused on lessons, but we do have a decent chunk of them here. But yeah, the game plan here is pretty simple. We're going to Earthbend our lands. We're going to make them really big, and then we're going to punch people in the face with them as is intended. So we've got a bunch of powerful ways of earthbending. Boomy Unleashed is a powerhouse. ETB earthbends, but then also it's a 5/4 trampler, and when it punches somebody in the face, you get to untap all your lands. And then, if you want, you could attack with all your lands again, which, why wouldn't you? That sounds amazing. Badger Mole Cub, 2-mana, mana dorky type thing, where it earthbends 1 when it enters, and then whenever we're tapping a creature for mana, we add another green. All our earthbended lands are tapping for mana and they're creatures, so they just tap for an additional mana. That's amazing. So we have a bunch of earthbending stuff, and then we have a bunch of synergy and payoffs for earthbending. Inspiring Call, for example. All of our earthbended lands have counters on them, and our other creatures are going to have counters on them too. So Inspiring Call is not just a board wipe protection, removal protection by giving our stuff indestructible, but also just refills our hand. It's really, really good. There's not a lot of ways of sacrificing our lanes for value, but one of the best ways is actually printed here. It's Tectonic Split. We sacrifice half the lands we control rounded up, and then suddenly all our lands tap for 3 mana of any one color. Again, we want to be just sacrificing our earthbended lands, because if we sacrifice an earthbended land, instead of them just staying in the graveyard, they just come back to the battlefield. They're no longer creatures, but they're still on the battlefield, and then we can earthbend them again and go wild with them, all while we ramped a hecton, which is super, super fun. Then on top of that, we have also indirect synergies, I would say, with the deck. For example, Iroh, Dragon of the West. All of our earthbended lands have counters on them. So Iroh's a really interesting way of having a red ramp going on. He basically gives all of our earthbended lands and, other +1/+1 creatures firebending too. And we can spend those on certain instants or mana sinks like Zuko Exiled Prince. We could just shove all that mana into Zuko and Impulse Draw over that instead. There's also some Power Matters themes going on in this deck. Obviously, we're in green. We have big creatures. our lands get super, super huge, so we might as well benefit from that even further. Stuff like the Legend of Kyoshi. Draw a whole bunch of cards, Earthbend a whole ton, and then the backside taps for a ton of mana. Love it. And then the Earth King, we attack with our big creatures, we ramp so many lands. This card is absolutely bananas. So that's the deck. Pretty straightforward, gruel, kind of stompy, but you animate your lands, and that's the main focus. And I think that's just super fun, you know? Like, a lot of green lane-based decks are all just like lanefall shenanigans, and this one is very much like, no. We're not sacrificing our lands for value. We're punching people in the face for value with our lands. And I think that's just novel and fun. As with all these decks, you can find the 10 upgrades in the article linked in the video description below, and also probably going to be stickied in the comments section because people sometimes can't find the video description. But yeah, I'm not going to go over all of them because that's going to take a very long time. And as you can see in the video, there's a lot to cover. But as a general rule of thumb for like earthbending decks, the more lands that can sacrifice themselves or the more sack outlets for lands you have, the better. And then obviously from that point, you could go for more lanefall triggers, and then you kind of turn into like a gruel generic lanefall deck, which is not really what I was aiming for. But if you just stick with Avatar themes, I guess luckily for me, you don't really have that many ways of sacrificing your lands and triggering lanefall stuff. It's really focused about punching people with lands, and I personally prefer that. But if you want something more powerful, more optimized, just run a bunch of like fetch lands and ways of sacrificing them, and then run some lanefall trigger finishers. We move on to the airbending deck, and it's an obvious choice. Aang has got to lead the airbending deck, right? And so this is the Bant Aang. This is Aang at the Crossroads. It's a 5-mana Bant, legendary creature, human avatar ally. It's a 3/3 flyer. When it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then when another creature control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep. The backside, very easy to flip, is a 4/4 flyer. Lane creatures you control have vigilance. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, Earth Bend 2. Now this Aang is also very, very strong. It's all about that ETB on the front side. The ETB is so powerful. ETB, look at the top 5. Any creature mana value 4 or less could go directly from the library onto the battlefield. So card advantage, mana advantage, and the hit rate is super, super high. Like I think the hit rate in this deck was like 90% or something like that when I was building it. I didn't do the math recently, but that's what I recall. But anyway, yeah, the hit rate's super high, and obviously it's something you want to airbend, right? Because you airbend it, you exile it, you reuse that onto the battlefield trigger. Also, you could just like have something else leave the battlefield and flip him over, and he becomes a 4/4 that just starts punching people in the face with lands. But it's really all about that front side. The front side is where all the value is. Just keep blinking Aang, airbending Aang for more and more value, and drowning your opponents in value. I love it. All right, so the deck is the airbending deck. So we're running almost every airbending card in our colors, because most of them are actually very, very good. Airbender Ascension is fantastic. ETB for 2 mana, you airbend something, and then once it has enough quest counters on it, just having creatures enter the battlefield, which is trivially easy, it becomes like a Conjurer's Closet, just blinking over and over every single turn for 2 mana. 2 mana for all this value is absurd. What? My favorite Aang out of all of them, Aang Swift Savior, aka 2025 Venser, ETB, flash, airbend a spell or a creature, and then the backside is just like a huge beater that wins you the game. Love to see it. So we're doing all of this airbending shenanigans, hopefully airbending our commander more and more times so we get more and more creatures on the battlefield and stuff. But we can airbend anything with a good ETB, or protect our creatures by airbending, or like just bouncing our opponent's stuff to slow them down. Like if they have a creature that needs to attack, we airbend it, and they don't have haste, then they have to recast their creature, and then they can't attack with it. Like, it's good. Airbending is really, really strong. And then We have some payoffs for airbending too. So Appa Steadfast Guardian, another thing that airbends, protects our entire board. Really, really cool card. But then as we're casting spells from exile, which we're doing with airbending, we're also putting a bunch of 1/1s onto the battlefield. And we also have really good airbend targets. Like Wan Shi Tong is a 4/4 flyer with a strong ETB that basically just removes a permanent, a non-land permanent. And yeah, it's 5 mana. But like it's already kind of worth it for the cast by itself. And then every single time we're airbending it, we get to reuse that powerful trigger for just 2 mana, which is redonkulous. It's really, really good. And then we also have a very minor ally sub-theme, ones that work particularly well with airbending. So like South Pole Voyager, most of our creatures are allies, and having them airbend back and forth into the battlefield means we're going to be gaining a bunch of life, but we're also going to be drawing a lot of cards incrementally. And then like Earth King's Lieutenant has a strong end to the battlefield trigger, pumps up all our creatures, puts counters on everything, and then whenever other allies are entering, he gets bigger too. Love to see it. And then that is basically the list. It is a very solid airbending list. Again, I would say this is like a bracket 2 list that you could probably bring to some bracket 3 tables, I suppose. And as usual, there are 10 Avatar themed upgrades in the article. You can find it in the links below. So that was the airbending deck, and I was going to go over to make the firebending deck. But then I thought, like, wait, well, I already had a 5-color Aang deck, and now the airbending deck is also an Aang deck. So maybe some people would want some variety on who's leading it, maybe a non-Aang leader for an airbending deck. I did not know if it was possible, but then I started tinkering, and Fire Lord Zuko actually kind of works as an airbending commander too. He's Mardu. Almost every single airbending card and every single thing that cares about airbending is in white. I think there's like 2 blue airbending cards, and that's it. Everything else is in white. And while he doesn't offer as much value as the Bant Aang, he offers a ton. He has Firebending X, where X is equal to his power. And then whenever you cast a spell from exile and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So instead of card advantage, mana advantage, he gives you mana advantage on the attack step, and it could be a lot of mana advantage. And whenever you're airbending and casting things from airbending zone, from exile zone, you're growing your entire team. So he is promoting airbending. So he's actually a cool alternative for an airbending deck, and he actually works very well. So I started brewing him. Again, we're running a bunch of airbending cards, basically all the white ones, the same as the Bant one. Aang Airbending Master works particularly well. For example, he airbends, but then also, as we're continuing to airbend and stuff, he makes a bunch of 1/1 allies so we can use for different purposes. And then we have also blink cards like Cloud Shift, which also triggers Zuko and stuff, which is really cool. Then I noticed that, if we're having permanents leave the battlefield as we're airbending them, Suki is particularly good here because she puts more 1/1s on the battlefield, and that's more bodies for Zuko to put +1/+1 counters on to grow, so his ability becomes more powerful, and she pumps up the team too, so she kind of makes a go wide thing going on. And then I noticed, hey, we're in Orzhov, so we can actually utilize Tolls of War. ETBs makes a clue, but more importantly, when we're sacrificing permanents like clues, we make 1/1s. That's great. Aids with the go wide, more things to put counters on. Lovely. Let's keep going with it. And then we have a bunch of clue generators in black. This is great for Zuko's firebending, and it will also trigger Suki and the other token maker that we just looked at. Obsessive Pursuit, like I mentioned before, is fantastic in this deck. If you have any firebender, popping clues is the best thing to do. Raven Eagle, some Graveyard Hate, and also Constant Draw, and a little bit of Drain going on. Why not? Live a little. And then we've got also, some Sacrifice synergies over here. Well, let's see it. Sanebender Scavengers. Whenever you're sacrificing permanents, it grows. And then when it dies, you get to reanimate something. Lovely. Phoenix Fleet Airship. Oh my god, this card is so cool. Whenever you're sacrificing, you make copies of it. And obviously, those copies make copies. So you're just like growing an exponential team of airships, which is just super cool. And they're 4/4 flyers that crew 1. It's really easy to smack with them as well. So then I started like adding a bunch of sacrifice cards because I was triggering all these other beneficial cards. And then I just kind of fell into this situation where suddenly I have Zuko conflicted, and I'm very happy that he's here because we can just sacrifice him to Fire Lord Ozai. Oh my god, you guys, I made a sacrifice deck by accident. Oops. So yeah, this is like a Mardu airbending, yes, go wide, yes, but also sacrifice deck that is really cool. It makes a lot of tokens in the form of clues and also 1/1s. It goes wide really easily. Zuko works really well with that. Airbending works with the whole shtick here too. There's a lot of ETBs to reuse, but it just so happens that also because we have all these tokens laying around, they're really good to sacrifice for additional value. And oh my god, I made an evil Fire Lord Zuko deck. I'm so sorry. So next we've got the Firebending deck. And what better option is there than Ozai the Phoenix King? He's all about firebending. He's a big old guy. He's a 6 mana 7/7 legendary human noble. He has trample firebending 4, wowza, and haste. If you lose unspent mana, that mana becomes red instead. Ozai has flying and indestructible as long as you have 6 or more unspent mana. The big bad of the show, he does not disappoint in terms of stats. He's a huge beater. He can give himself flying and indestructible fairly easily. And what's really notable as him as a leader of a firebending deck is he kind of circumvents the main weakness of firebending in that you can make so much mana on your attack phase or combat phase, but then you can only utilize it during combat. You can't use it afterwards to cast sorcery speed things. And Ozai allows you to just spend that red mana however you want on your next main phase or whatever. So that's pretty awesome. The fact that he is huge, he firebends a lot, he gives himself resiliency to removal, evasion, and he allows you to utilize that firebending mana in an unlimited way. So that means you can load up on firebending cards in the deck too, which is exactly what I was doing. Avatar Roku, 6 mana every single combat. That is ridiculous. Even on your opponent's turns too. So this can add up really, really fast with Ozai on the battlefield. Azula on the hunt. This is a firebender too. But whenever she's attacking, you make a clue. You could spend that mana to crack the clue or spend it on other things too. So there's a lot of firebenders. There's a lot of firebenders in the deck. We're fully loaded up on firebenders. And then we also have really interesting ways of utilizing firebending mana too, because we're generating so much of it. Something like Zao, the Moonslayer, is actually quite useful to us as a legit Blood Moon effect, because we can actually spend that 7 mana and get a Conquer counter on him. Also, if your opponents just have greedier man bases, just as a 2 mana 2/2 that slows them by having their non-basics enter tapped is good enough already. And then obviously like Faded Firepower is going to go so hard in this deck because we're making so much firebending mana that we can slap this down and like all our things hit for a bajillion damage now. It's so fun. So yeah, that's the deck. A lot of firebending stuff, a little bit of the clue stuff, a little bit of the sacrifice stuff that we've already covered with Fire Lord Zuko. That's why I'm not going like too deep on all the card options. And as always, the 10 upgrades for Avatar themed cards are in the article. So I made the firebending deck and I was about to make the waterbending deck when I realized, but wait, like Ozai's not very popular, is he? Like, I think he is the most like appropriate firebending leader just because his ability allowing you to use firebending in a less limited way is very interesting if you want to go all in on firebending. But there's obviously a much more popular firebender from the show that people are raving about, and that's Fire Lord Azula. So I made a bonus firebending Azula Avatar themed deck. This is arguably the strongest commander from the set, maybe like top 3 or so strongest in set, not in an Avatar themed restriction. I think the 5-color Aang one is the strongest in an Avatar themed restriction. But if you remove the restriction, she is certainly one of the strongest storm decks they've ever printed, and is very, very exciting for a lot of people. So this is a 4 mana Grixis 4/4 legendary creature human noble firebending 2, and whenever you cast a spell while Azula is attacking, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this is basically like aggressive storm You attack with Azula, then you cast a whole bunch of instants, you copy them for free, you choose a bunch of instants that are like generating mana or generating card draw, and try to like chain as many as possible and either win the game in that combat step or have your opponents be so far behind by the end of it that they basically lost. That's like if you have no budget and infinite card pool and stuff. In the Avatar themed version, she's much more tame, I would say, but still incredibly powerful. So this deck is leaning heavily on instants that work particularly well with Azula. Abandoned Attachments is a super looter with Azula. You can spend that 2 firebending mana from Azula just to cast it, and then you get to discard, draw 2, discard, draw 2 again. So you get to rummage twice as much and just like find the cards you need, get rid of the excess lands or whatever in your hand, whatever. Even better though is Frantic Search. You get to draw 2, discard 2, and do that twice, and you're actually netting mana in the process because the first time you cast Frantic Search, you get to untap 3 lands, usually as much mana as you spent to cast it. But then when you copy the spell, since you didn't spend additional mana to cast it, you just get to untap 3 more lands. So you're up 3 mana in the exchange while looting 4 cards, which is really good. Then we're running basically every single banger instant in Grixis colors. The Last Agony Kai is a terrific fight spell. Azula is already a 4/4 baseline, and we have a lot of ways of pumping up her power and toughness. So you get to fight 2 creatures and potentially generate a bunch of mana to keep going and casting other spells. Whirlwind Technique is a great card to just dump all your firebending mana into, because if you copy with Azula, you've drawn 4 cards, discarded 2 cards, and airbended 4 target creatures. That is wild. That is so fun. And then outside of instant and sorceries, we have a bunch of cards that kind of just like synergize or support the main theme of the deck. We have a significant amount of lessons in the deck. So Grant actually slaps. She's just a mana dork, a mana discount for 1 mana, which is wild. She's not often going to be tapped unless Master Paku shows up, but he's not in the deck here. But then we have Azula, Cunning Usurper, which just fits so well with the Grixis Azula. She has Firebending too. She's just helping cast instants and flash and cracking clues and stuff. Works really well with the Grixis Azula. But then that ETB is so strong. ETB, exile a creature, exile a card from their graveyard, and then during your turn, you can cast those cards with flash. So you can use that Firebending mana from Azula or Grixis Azula or whatever to cast them during combat. And by the way, when you're casting them during combat, you can copy them with your Grixis commander, right? Like, because they have flash, you can cast a creature or whatever that you stole with it, and then you get to make an extra copy with the Grixis Azula. It's silly. It's so strong. These two are so strong together. So that's the full list. Even though it's Avatar themed only, this is one of the stronger decks that we're going to be seeing here from the Commander Precons. And obviously, if you get rid of the Avatar themed restriction, she goes nuts, right? She goes absolutely nuts. And there's 10 upgrades in the article section and whatnot. And if you were interested in seeing how nuts she is, even on a budget without an Avatar theme restriction, I got you, fam. So I actually built a deck where the budget restriction was every single non-land card must be under $2 at the time of recording. So the total price is about $60 currently, and that's with like pre-order prices on Azula and stuff like that, which is going to go down over time. But I just wanted to show you how redonkulous this commander really can be. So we replace, the Avatar themed cards with some really big bangers like Big Score and Unexpected Windfall. These cards are so much better than a looter because it says, as an additional cost to cast these spells, discard a card. So when we copy these spells, we don't have to discard a card again. So Big Score, for example, when we're copying with Azula reads, basically we discard a card, draw 2 cards, make 2 treasures, and then we copy it, so we draw 2 cards and create 2 treasures. So we've discarded a card to draw 4 cards and make 4 treasures for 4 mana. Absolutely ridiculous. Big Score and Unexpected Windfall, 2 of the best things you can possibly copy with Azula. Really, really good. And then we're loaded up on instant speed removal. So like Shieldred's Edict. Everybody now has to sacrifice 2 creatures That's like basically a board wipe at instant speed. Dispersal is so fun. For 5 mana, it's a lot, but again, Firebending 2 makes it a lot more manageable. Each opponent has to now return 2 non-land permanents back to their hand, and then they have to discard 2 cards. So brutal, so brutal. So we're full up with interaction. We're full up with card draw and treasure generators. And then to win the game, we're killing people with Azula, baby. Fists of Flame, we get to draw a card and then add a bunch of power to Azula equal to the amount of cards we've drawn. And then we draw another card and then we add that much power again to her plus that additional 1. And then Bulk Up, for example, is also great too. We double her power and then double her power again. And then if we can flashback it, I mean, that's GG. That's like infinite damage at that point. And then the other key part that we're picking up going outside of Avatar is we have a lot of really great ramp options like Nightscape Familiar, just making all of our spells have a mana discount less. Like there's almost no black spells in the deck. So it's almost all red spells and blue spells. So Nightscape Familiar just makes basically everything costs 1 less. And Stormkill Artist works particularly well with Azula too. We're mostly casting instant sorceries, or actually just instants. And every single time we're casting one and copying with Azula, we're making a treasure. So we just get to pop off. Super, super hard. The deck is really, really strong. It's $60, give or take. I don't know. It's not counting shipping or whatever. Don't roast me in the comment section being like, oh no, it was $200 with shipping. I don't know. This is like what MTG Goldfish prices tell me. It says $60. It's about that much. I don't know. But yes, it's relatively cheap is what I'm trying to say. Just look through your bulk bin because these are all very cheap cards. You probably have them laying around in your piles of cardboard. But yeah, deck is really, really strong. All right, so I got very sidetracked doing firebending stuff and showing how powerful Azula is and stuff. Now we finally get back on track. Here's the waterbending deck. Katara Water Tribe's Hope. And this is a great finisher. It's a 5 mana Azorius, 3/3, legendary creature, human warrior ally, has vigilance, it ETBs, makes a 1/1 white ally creature token, and it has Waterbend X, where creatures you control have base power and toughness X until end of turn. So it's a good finisher for the deck. For a waterbending deck, you go wide, you use Katara's waterbending ability to pump up the team and smash face. So there are some very good waterbending cards. For example, 2 of the best ones for a waterbending deck, Secret of Bloodbending. You either take control of somebody's combat step, which is already really, really good, or if you can waterbend 10, you just mind slaver them, you mind control them for a turn. That's absolutely brutal. Water Whip, I think, is severely underrated. If you can waterbend 5, like just tap down 5 things and then pay 2 mana, you just bounce 2 things, draw 2 cards. It's just super efficient. And there also are some good support pieces for waterbending. There are a couple cards, like Tween Law being the best one, where they want to be waterbended and they reward you for doing so. So Tween Law, when it becomes tapped, you draw a card. So whenever you waterbend with it, you draw a card. And then whenever it untaps, it becomes a little bit bigger. Awesome to see. And then we have some efficient token makers too, like the Mechanist. Whenever you're casting a non-creature spell, you make a clue, and then you can tap those clues to waterbend with, and that's great. And you can even use the Mechanist to turn them into creatures. Awesome. Love it. In all the cards, I think the deck is actually just fine, like bracket 2 or whatever. But I was a little bit bummed that it didn't feel as thematic, as synergistic as some of the other decks that we just talked about. So I kind of felt a little bit let down with it. And that is why I built another Katara deck. There's another Katara. It's a Dimir one. It's a 4 mana Dimir hybrid, 3/3, additional cost to cast a spell. You may waterbend 2. When it ETBs, you draw a card, then discard a card, unless you waterbended 2. And then she gets +1/+1 for each lesson card in your graveyard. It's not very impressive, y'all, but it does waterbend and it is Katara. And I kind of wanted to have the whole Aang gang here in Commander Precon form. So this was my attempt. The reason why I went Dimir, though, is because Dimir actually has access to some of the best waterbending cards that Azorius simply does not have access to. So you got like Hama the Bloodbender, which is really cool, like mill theft type effect. Foggy Swamp Visions, absolutely insane. It's graveyard hate, but then also if you have like anything that has like enter the battlefield effects, creatures with enter the battlefield effects, or leave the battlefield effects, or sacrifice effects, or any of that fun stuff, you can reuse them one time with Foggy Swamp Visions. Really, really cool. And then Black also utilizes or offers a lot more efficient token generators that you can waterbend with. So like Nyla, ETBs, makes a bunch of clues. And then eventually when you crack all those clues, you get to get whatever exiled creature it exiled with it back to your hand. So it's a little bit of recursion. And then there's even like some Dimir cards like Foggy Swamp Spirit Keeper. Whenever you're drawing your second card each turn, you make a 1/1. So, you have access to more clues because that's a very Black thing in the Avatar set. Clue generation, they're very good at doing it. And then when you're cracking those clues or using them for waterbending or whatever to draw cards, then you make 1/1s and you can use those 1/1s to waterbend with. So it's very cool. It works very well. So the end result is, I would say, a better waterbending deck. The Dimir version, I think, is overall much better and interesting than the Azorius one. The commander is weaker, but then you have access to Black, and I think just Black complements waterbending better than White does. I would personally go for the Dimir one because I think it's a little bit more interesting, but the Azorius one, honestly, I was being a little bit exaggerating on how bad I think it is. I just feel like there's just not enough waterbending cards. I wish there was a little bit more. That's all. But I think the decks power-wise should be fine. But then I was like, man, I just want to make one good Katara deck. So I did. This is Katara Waterbending Master. And I didn't even mention her up till now because she's a Waterbending Master that doesn't waterbend on her card. But she's very strong. She's the strongest Katara out of all of them. She's 2 mana blue, 1/3 legendary creature human warrior ally. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, you get an experience counter, and whenever it attacks, you may draw a card for each experience counter you have. If you do, discard a card. So she doesn't do anything with waterbending. And also, I tried making an Avatar-themed deck around her, like the waterbending deck around her in mono blue, but there's just not enough cards in monocolors to make a monocolor deck with just Avatar cards. I just struggled to fill all the slots with. But nonetheless, she's very, very powerful. So I might have made another budget deck around Katara just to show what she's all about. So this is basically a draw-go deck. All you want to do is cast a bunch of spells on your opponent's turns. That will net you a bunch of experience counters. Then you attack with Katara and you draw stupid amounts of cards. That easy. And this is all on a 2-drop. It comes out early if it's your commander. You accrue experience counters super, super fast. If she dies, whatever, you can recast her super easily, at least twice, in a given commander game. And even if she attacks a single time, you're probably going to be drawing like 4+ cards with her. So that's a lot for a 2-drop. What can I say? So I'm not going to go over all the specific cards here because the video is going very long, and I have to start packing soon. I'm going to Berlin tomorrow, and I actually have to go to sleep in like 2 hours, but I still have to edit this. But anyway, here's the list. If you want to see the full list, it's in the article. But yeah, I'm crazy. I made too many decks. I'm so sorry. Okay, so those were all the bending decks. We also had the Aang deck. We also had some bonus Azula and Katara decks. So that's obviously the end of the video, except no, it's not. I wanted to have the rest of the Aang gang, so I made a Sokka deck. I can't leave out Sokka. I did literally every single person in the Aang gang, but not Sokka. So here he is, and he's actually very, very strong. Sokka, Tenacious Tactician, Jeskai, 4 mana, legendary creature, human warrior ally. It's a 3/3, has menace and prowess. Other allies you control have menace and prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. This card is bananas. It is possibly the best allies commander out there, but you don't even need to play that many allies, is the crazy thing, because he himself, as long as you're casting a bunch of non-creature spells, as long as you're chained together a bunch of non-creature spells, he's pooping out a ton of allies. And he's also the finisher for the deck too, because not only is he generating the allies, but he's giving them prowess, he's giving them menace, he's pumping them up. So you just cast non-creature spells. Just cast non-creature spells, a bunch of them, and Sokka will do with the rest. But obviously, you can make things even more spicy than that. That's just like the generic approach to building Sokka. And this is Avatar themed, so obviously we have restrictions on the card pool, but you can see that the deck is actually super, super fun. So in terms of non-creature spells, we're running a bunch of, like the cheap cantrips like Consider. And then we're also running like coastal piracy effects because we're a go wide deck. So Waterbender Ascension is fantastic here. It's a non-creature spell, so it triggers soccer, obviously. And then as all our 1/1s and stuff are hitting people in the face, it immediately turns into a coastal piracy, but for 2 mana instead of 4. We're running coastal piracy, but this is even better, so I wanted to shout this one out in particular. And then we're obviously an ally deck, so we have a bunch of cards that poop out additional allies, like a United Front. And once we have a go-wide team, we can cast stuff like Overwhelming Victory, blow up a creature. If we blow up a small creature, then our creatures get really, really big, and we punch people in the face for even more damage than what Sokka is providing with Prowess. And then on top of all of that, we're also an ally deck because all our tokens are allies, so might as well run some payoffs for being an ally deck. Wartime Protesters. Now all our allies get +1/+1 counters and haste. Absolutely insane. South Pole Voyager, one of the best 2-drops in the entire deck because Sokka can easily poop out 1-2 allies all by himself every single turn. And that means you're gaining a bunch of life for 1, but also you're drawing cards steadily for 2 mana on an ally. That's fantastic. And also it gets grown by Sokka's Anthem ability too. So the deck is very, very strong. I mean, even with the Avatar restriction, he's very, very good. And then obviously if you go beyond Avatar, there's a lot of older allies from previous Magic sets that say like whenever an ally enters, you get like a really huge benefit. And a lot of them are very, very good in this deck as well. All right. And that, my friends, is finally it. Is what I'm going to say when I finish with Iroh Grand Locust. I swear this is the last one, but I couldn't leave out Iroh, my favorite Avatar character. Iroh Grand Lotus is a 6-mana teamer, 5/5 legendary creature, human noble ally. It has firebending 2, and during your turn, each non-lesson instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. Its flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, and during your turn, each lesson card in your graveyard has flashback of just 1. This card is so good. So basically, baseline Iroh is just like Pass in Flames in the command zone, which is already very, very strong. But then on top of that, if you're like a lesson deck, he just makes all your lessons cost 1 mana, which is insane. So I guess like the most optimized version of Iroh, ignoring like Avatar only and stuff, is probably like build him as a Storm deck, but I think that's kind of boring. And I also don't think he's the best Storm commander out there. I feel like that's kind of wasted potential because the most exciting thing to me, at least, is the fact that he makes your lessons very, very strong by making their flashback cost 1. And you know what? He's actually perfect for an Avatar-only theme restriction because almost all the good lessons are in the Avatar set. There's hardly any other lessons out there in general. There's only a couple in Strixhaven, and most of them are bad. So it's mostly just the good lessons from Avatar. So he's actually perfect for an Avatar-only commander deck. So the type of lessons we're running, there's a mix of very, very good, generically good lessons that you would be running even outside of a lesson deck, like Shared Roots is just another rampant growth. Redirect Lightning is arguably one of the best redirects they ever printed. It's very, very strong. And then we have some cards that, are a little bit sus, but you know what? They become very, very strong when you can flash them back for just 1 mana. Whirlwind Technique, yeah, I would like to pay 1 mana, flash it back to draw 2 cards, discard a card, and airbend 2 targets. Yeah, I would. And then also like Lost Days, not very good at 5 mana, but at 1 mana, tucking a creature enchantment and making Clue is very, very good. I will pay that 1 mana every single time. You know what? Yeah. So because lessons are all instants and sorceries, obviously we have some Spellslinger instant sorcery support cards. Shocker Meditation goes super hard in this deck. We get to recur an instant sorcery as soon as it ETBs. And then we get to start looting a bunch. We can start putting lessons into our graveyard so we can flash them back with Iroh for super cheap. Or if we have enough lessons in the graveyard, which we have like 26 lessons in the deck, so we'll fill up pretty quickly. It just becomes straight card draw as well. This card is bananas. And then we even have like sagas where you cast instant sorceries, we mill ourselves, and then eventually we draw cards 1 to 3. This is really good. So we're just milling ourselves, getting those lessons in the graveyard as quickly as possible. And then we also have some other lesson support pieces like Hermetic Herbalist, taps for mana, taps for 2 mana instead if we're casting Lessons. Random Shaw also rewards us for having a bunch of Lessons in the graveyard, because then we get, for 5 mana, 2 4/4 flyers of Firebend 2, so we can make 4 mana each time we're attacking, and then we can pump up all our dragons and stuff and smash face for a lot of damage. So yeah, this deck is actually very, very good, and also fits really well with the Avatar only restriction. It works really well as like a precon, so to speak, because you want to focus on Lessons anyway, and this is one of the only sets that actually cares about Lessons and does it very well. So you're not really missing too much if you want to make a Lessons deck, is what I'm saying. Obviously, the mana base and stuff could get a lot of benefit from going outside of the Avatar set, but it still works just fine, I think. And that, finally, is the end. Oh my god, I swear, when I wanted to make this video, all I wanted to do was make 4 precons, 1 for each bending type. I made the 5-color Aang deck for Clash, and that was it. That was all I was planning to do. And then as I started making the video, I just made more decks and more decks and more decks. And this is the result. So hopefully one of these decks are helpful to you. Hopefully multiple R's. Please let me know in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you like this sort of content. And if you want budget brews of Avatar, let me know in the comment section below which ones you want to see done. I am working still on an upcoming 40 budget decks under $40, and I haven't done any Avatar ones yet. I guess Azula kind of counts if I lowered her price somehow. So yeah, let me know in the comment section. All right, everybody, I got to go. So until next time, friends. See ya.